What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy Willie Does Wrestling back at it again with a brand new video. And in today's video, I know we're like an hour or two until AEW All Out, but I did promise all of you over on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that I was going to do this video ranking every NXT North American champion in history, at least as of September 3rd, 2023. Based only on their runs in the main roster. You guys really seem to like my NXT Champions one. I also got a comment saying that they wanted to see the North American Championship get rated based on the wrestlers' run in the main roster. So that's what I'm going to do here today. I was going to make this video yesterday, but I ran into some technical difficulties. But now they seem to be all fine, so we're going to go straight on into it. Of course, there are on this tier list like a number of runs. Like you got all three of Johnny Gargano's runs, so we're not going to fucking do all three runs. We'll just do, just Johnny Gargano. And I think there's two Carmelo Hayes ones. Yeah, these two. So there are multiple time champions, but we're not even going to worry about it. Of course, this is under 5 rankings. This is under GOAT, Good, Mid, Never on the Main Roster, and Trash. That's really what we're going to rate these wrestlers with. And yeah, essentially it's the same formula as the other NXT Champions tier ranking video. If you missed that, be sure to go and check that video out. Maybe in a couple of days or so, I'll do the NXT Women's Championship. There's been a bunch of great NXT Women's Champions that I will put. And yeah, let's get right on into it. And also be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for 1K subs. Okay, enough with that long-ass intro. Let's get into the ranking. We start off with Adam Cole, baby, and like the last video, unfortunately, well, actually, kind of fortunately, he was never on the main roster. Adam Cole, one of the greatest NXT wrestlers of all time, will always go down. Longest reigning NXT champion, Triple Crown champion as well. Adam Cole was definitely very, very great in NXT. He is the first ever North American champion. He has a resume unlike any other, but he left WWE while still in NXT, and like we said, there were reports that Adam Cole was apparently going to be Keith Lee's manager, and that was how he was going to get called up to the main roster. But Adam Cole is now in AEW, and he's part of one of the hottest acts in AEW. So that is very good. But yeah, no, Adam Cole, in terms of North American champions on their time in the main roster, he was never on the main roster. So that's really it. Next, we have Ricochet. And Ricochet, he had a U.S. title run, but he never really got anywhere really past it. I mean, he had a lot of exposure this summer when he had a SummerSlam feud with Logan Paul. He had a good tag team going with Braun Strowman. But besides that, Ricochet hasn't really had that much exposure. Sure, he's winning a little bit more under the Triple H regime, because under the Vince regime, he was more of like a jobber. His peak was really his first couple of weeks in the main roster, and a lot of that can be said for most NXT call-ups. But where I'm going to put Ricochet, I'm going to have to put him under mid. I mean, he was kind of going towards good, but ever since the Logan Paul feud, Ricochet hasn't really been anywhere. He hasn't really been nowhere, so that's unfortunate. So I'm going to have to put Ricochet's main roster run as mid, and that is very sad to say the least. Ricochet is one of the most versatile people in WWE in terms of their move sets and overall their athleticism. Like, Ricochet is very, very good. Next, we got Johnny Gargano, and like I said in my NXT Champions one, he's not focused at all. He seems like one of those Triple H guys who would be very focused and would get a decent push. Like we said, it seems like he's getting towards maybe a DIY reunion with Tommaso Ciampa, but right now, Johnny Gargano hasn't been focused on at all. He's mainly just a sidekick, and he's either in like pointless segments with the Way, or he's just not on TV. So there's no telling where exactly Johnny Gargano is going to go from here. That's why, just like the NXT Champions one, I got to put him under mid as of right now, right beside Ricochet. Definitely not good, but also definitely not trash. I wouldn't say Johnny Gargano's main roster run is trash, because there's a lot more people that are deserving of the trash territory. Next, we move on to the Velveteen Dream, one of the longest reigning North American champions, but also one of the most forgettable North American champions. Velveteen Dream ultimately was never on the main roster, and because of this, Velveteen Dream's WWE run was, he was something unique. NXT really saw a lot in Velveteen Dream. He was the North American champion. He challenged for the NXT championship multiple times, but of course, some personal things started coming out about Velveteen Dream, which ultimately granted him his release from the WWE. And Velveteen Dream was still in NXT. There's no telling what he would have been able to do on the main roster. So yeah, he falls under the never on main roster category. There also seems like on this list there's going to be a lot of never on main roster. Another one of those is our next pick, our next champion here, which is Roderick Strong, another wrestler currently a part of AEW. Roderick Strong, just like Adam Cole, a member of the Undisputed Era, multiple-time NXT Tag Team Champion. But sorry, my camera fucked up. But Roderick Strong was never able to get back in that superstardom stage of his career here. But the thing that I really liked about Roderick Strong was that he was versatile. But yeah, no, his early NXT career was absolutely amazing under the Undisputed Era, and then after the Undisputed Era broke up, he was absent for a little bit. Then he formed the Diamond Mine faction, but he wasn't really that focused. He was also NXT Cruiserweight Champion, I think like one of the final Cruiserweight champions under that modern, and then he was injured. He had the classic injured neck of Roderick Strong, a lot like he does right now in AEW. So Roderick Strong quietly got released from WWE while he was still in NXT, and now he is a part of AEW, which grants him in the never on main roster category. Now we move on to Keith Bearcat Lee, and like we said on the NXT Champions one, he falls under the trash category. The reason why Keith Lee is under the trash category is because Keith Lee was fumbled badly. His peak was at Payback 2020. He beat Randy Orton, and then after that, his career went downhill. He started to become more of a jobber. Then he wouldn't be on TV. Then he adapted the shitty Bearcat gimmick, and he was not used well, and then he was released. And now Keith Lee, like many other people on this list, is in AEW. Keith Lee's not really that focused on there, but better than his main roster run, so that's why I put Keith Lee under the trash category. Now we move on to Damian Priest, the current senior Money in the Bank, and now, as of last night, one half of the new undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. Damian Priest has had a very great run on the main roster. He came in, he was pushed heavily. He had that little thing with Bad Bunny at WrestleMania. Not long after, he won the United States Championship, and then not long after that, he joined the Judgment Day. He is the founding member of the Judgment Day, still in there. The Judgment Day has been running roughshod. He won the Money in the Bank ladder match this year. Definitely on my money for a successful cash-in, future World Heavyweight Champion. And then last night, he and Finn Balor, became the new tag team champions last night at Payback by beating Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So for that, honestly, Priest will go under the GOAT territory. I don't care what anybody says. Damian Priest has all the makings of GOAT status. And in terms of everyone else that has held the NXT North American Championship, I think Damian Priest is worthy of the GOAT territory on the main roster. Then we move on to the most forgettable NXT North American champion, Leon Ruff, a jobber who beat Johnny Gargano in 2 minutes thanks to Damian Priest when Johnny Gargano and Damian Priest were in the middle of a feud. And yeah, Leon Ruff obviously never made it to the main roster. Sometimes I even forget that Leon Ruff was the NXT North American champion. It would be wild to see what Leon Ruff would do on the main roster. I actually think he had a few main roster matches during the pandemic. I think he had a couple squash matches with Aleister Black or whatever, and then yeah, all that shit. But definitely Leon Ruff was never on the main roster. But if he was, he'd probably fall under the trash category as well. But anyways, now we move on to Big Bronson Reed. Not long after he won the North American Championship, he got released. And then he was one of the many rehires under Triple H when he had his regime. And Bronson Reed is really just there. I mean, he was the muscle for The Miz, I think, very briefly. Then it seemed like he was going to get a little bit of a push around Backlash and Money in the Bank season, and now we barely even see the guy. Now he's in the middle of a feud with Tommaso Ciampa, and it might be a little too early to grant Bronson Reed this, but right now, man, I'm thinking his main roster run's pretty fucking trash. I'm sorry. I don't really think Bronson Reed's main roster run is good at all. Definitely not. I'm sorry. And now we got Isaiah Swerve Scott, now known as Swerve Strickland. And if anyone has a bigger upgrade between WWE and AEW, it is definitely Swerve Strickland. Swerve won the NXT North American Championship under Hit Row. Then he lost the belt to Carmelo Hayes. Then he went over to the main roster under Hit Row and didn't even last a month. All of Hit Row got released within 3 or 4 weeks of debuting on the main roster. I think it was because of shit that Top Dollar said in a diss track. And yeah, they got released. Swerve ended up going to AEW. The rest of Hit Row are unfortunately still with the WWE. They were part of the many rehires of Triple H. But in the short time that Swerve was on the main roster, it was trash. And it's sad for me to say that right now because Swerve is doing so well in AEW. But I'm so glad that he is there and he's expanding. And he's definitely one of the greats in AEW. But yeah, his main roster run, shit. Then we move on to Carmelo Hayes. As of this recording, he is the current NXT champion. He had one main roster match, and that was against Finn Balor. But he was never full-time on the main roster, and I know people are going to be like, whoa, he was on the main roster against Finn Balor once. I don't care. I'm still going to count Carmelo Hayes as never on the main roster. That's it. Carmelo Hayes is definitely a hopefully future Intercontinental or United States champion. If I was booking, I'd make him world champion. Fuck it, But anyways, Carmelo Hayes is never on the main roster. There's a lot of never on the main rosters, it seems. Then we move on to Cameron Grimes, who is part of the SmackDown roster, but you never realize that unless you search up WWE.com under the SmackDown category. Cameron Grimes was drafted to SmackDown as part of this year's WWE draft, and I've only really seen him twice. He was never on fucking TV, and it's normally in squash matches where he would actually win. I remember his debut was a squash match against Baron Corbin, and then another time I saw him was a fatal four-way match where I think the number one contender for the United States Championship. Cameron Grimes is never on TV, so like I said, might be a little bit early to rank him, but he goes under trash as well. I don't think he's very good on the main roster. There's no good territory people on here, and it's sad. Then we move on to Solo Sikoa. And in terms of NXT North American champions, he would be under trash because he only held the NXT North American Championship for a week. And then Shawn Michaels was like, oh, no, buddy, you have to vacate the title because you weren't part of a fucking voting system or whatever. So Solo Sikoa had to vacate it after a week. But his main roster run, man, is a chef's kiss. His stuff with the Bloodline, absolutely amazing. He's in the main event of multiple Raws, multiple SmackDowns. Solo Sikoa is having the time of his life in terms of, the main roster. And Solo Sikoa is definitely going to be a top star. When this Bloodline shit is all said and done, Solo Sikoa is going to be one of those Samoans who hopefully wins a world title in the future. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing a Solo Sikoa versus Roman Reigns feud, but in the way Solo Sikoa is being booked, you gotta put him under GOAT. You gotta put him under GOAT status. Solo Sikoa, in a very short amount of time, is doing insanely well in the WWE, and Solo Sikoa really deserves GOAT status for me. Then we move on to Wes Lee, I think the longest reigning North American champion, but Wes Lee had an amazing run as North American champion, but he is still in NXT. He recently challenged for the NXT championship against Carmelo Hayes. Hopefully Wes Lee becomes a future NXT champion. I don't want him going to the main roster just yet. I think he should have a couple more years in NXT to become really the workhorse of that brand. He's a workhorse champion, definitely. But as of right now, of course, this is just a main roster ranking, which means we have to put Wes Lee on Never on the main roster. So that's very unfortunate. We have 6 champions on Never on the main roster. And now we move on to Dominic Mysterio, the current NXT North American champion. And like I said about Dolph Ziggler, this is kind of cheating because Dominic Mysterio made his name on the main roster before becoming NXT champion. This is his first singles championship. A couple years ago, he was SmackDown Tag Team Champion with his father. His run with the Judgment Day after betraying his father, I think, a year ago in 2 days. Dominic Mysterio has evolved as a heel, as a singles performer. He won the North American Championship not too long ago, and he's having the run of his life. He's getting NXT a ton of ratings. He's putting a ton of eyes on NXT, and every single week on Monday Night Raw, he is doing well. He's constantly on TV. He's constantly on the main event of Raws, NXTs, and even sometimes SmackDowns. Dominic Mysterio is one of those guys that not a lot of people thought would be a star, but he is a star, and that's what a group like the Judgment Day do. Even though I might be very, very mad at the fact that the Judgment Day are kind of getting a bit overexposed, I gotta accept that Dominic Mysterio is on the run of his life right now. So, because of that, I'm going to put Dominic Mysterio under the GOAT territory as well. We have 3 North American champions on GOAT. And yeah, I think Priest, Solo, and Dom make a very good GOAT group in terms of NXT North American champions. But with that being said, that concludes my ranking every NXT North American champion by their run on the main roster ranking. So let's go over it. GOAT, I have Damian Priest, Solo Sikoa, and Dominic Mysterio. I have no one under just good, in my opinion. Mid, I have Ricochet and Johnny Gargano. Never on the main roster was Adam Cole, Velveteen Dream, Roderick Strong, Leon Ruff, Carmelo Hayes, and Wes Lee. And trash is Keith Lee, Bronson Reed, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Cameron Grimes. Let me know your rankings down in the comments below, and let me know if you want me to do NXT Women's Champions. I would very well love to do that in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to turn post notifications on. And until then, this has been your boy Willie Does Wrestling. I will see you in the next video. Be good, people, and peace.